Hi everyone, my name is Isaiah Torres and I will be doing Chapter 10, Characteristics of Gothic Style, pages 313 through 326. The learning objectives for Chapter 10 is to identify the characteristics of Gothic style of architecture and to explain its significance in French cathedrals, and then to also trace changes in sacred music of the High Middle Ages. Gothic cathedrals originated in France. They were aimed to create bigger, more spacious, and brighter churches. Some of the main characteristics of Gothic cathedrals are pointed arches, which direct the weight downward. It allowed for taller structures with thinner walls, which is just the top part of the cathedral that you can see here. The flying buttresses, which is number 2 off to the right, those are external half arches that were outward and downward to support the walls. They transferred the weight of the roof to the ground and allowed for the cathedrals to be taller, and also allowed for there to be larger windows. If you look at 4 and 5, those are called rib vaults. They are the framework of arches in the ceiling that concentrate the weight onto specific piers. It also reduced the stress on the walls. You can see a bit here in between the arches where there's stained glass windows. Gothic cathedrals have large stained glass and that are used to depict Bible scenes, and they flood the inside of the cathedral with colored light to etherealize the solid stone. Verticality is really important for Gothic cathedrals. Everything goes upward, and it's supposed to cause the person to look upward towards the heavens. And Gothic cathedrals also have a lot of ornate decoration. They're very detailed. They also include realistic sculptures of figures. The Notre Dame Cathedral began to be built in 1163 and wasn't completed until almost a century later in 1250. It's considered to be one of the most famous buildings in architect history. It was also one of the first cathedrals to use flying buttresses, rib vaults, and pointed arches, which are all main characteristics of Gothic style. It's located in Ile de la Cite, an island in the Seine River, which is now known as Paris. It has articulated sections which balances between vertical and horizontal elements. Gothic style is considered to be more organic than geometric. The Notre Dame also resembles earlier Gothic buildings. It visually unified design with smoother transitions. Chartres Cathedral is considered to be the first true High Gothic church and is known to be one of the most influential architecturally. It was constructed in 1194 after a fire that left only the original facade and crypt. This cathedral is known as one of the most preserved Gothic cathedrals in Europe. To this day, it still has majority of its original structure. It has a 3-level wall elevation built to include larger windows to allow more light into the interior. There's more than 173 windows installed. It has a rectangular base system. The vaulting creates a visual effect of unity through repetition. The style of this church is a mix of Romanesque and Gothic style. It shows the transitional work blending between both eras. The Amiens Cathedral is massive. It's one of the largest in France by volume. It has continuous sweep of space from the narthex, which is the entrance of the church, to the apse, which is where the altar is found. The stained glass for the Amiens Cathedral floods the interior with spectacular patterns of soft-colored light. The architects primarily focused on creating a spiritual escape to another world. Sainte-Chapelle Cathedral was built by King Louis IX. This cathedral is known for its amount of stained glass. 3/4 of the interior is comprised of stained glass, approximately 6,450 square feet. It was built to house relics of the Passion of Jesus Christ, including the crown of thorns. This cathedral was built with a skeletal frame. It's primarily done to just minimal architecture just to frame the windows. It's the style of this cathedral is the Rayonnette style, which is radiant. It's a transitional style that shifted focus from extreme height to intricate decoration. Has more decorative elements. The rose windows, which you can see, that became more elaborate, and it's located a minute away from the Notre Dame. Mysticism of light. Luminosity sets Gothic architecture apart from the Romanesque. Light is a big factor in Gothic style. And it was expressed, luminosity is expressed primarily through stained glass. Abbot Suger wrote two booklets about the building and decorating program he initiated for the Abbey Church of St. Denis. He fully utilizes stained glass for all of its possibilities. He also encouraged architects to use stained glass and provided a theory to justify and enhance its use. Stained glass is the medium through which light is seen directly in cathedrals. It is believed that as light becomes more pure, one ascends the hierarchy and becomes closer to God, to pure light, which is God. Glazier art was used to produce the stained glass. Metallic salts were added to molten glass, and individual pieces were fitted together like a puzzle and fixed in place by lead framing to create art. And the meaning of the glass can only be seen from the inside of the church when the sun is shining through it. Our Lady of the Beautiful Wisdom was created in the 12th century. It was saved from the rubble of the fire of 1194 of Chartres Cathedral. It's the symbol of the Virgin Mary as the throne of wisdom. It's known for its blue and red glass. It creates a stunning and ethereal effect. Glaziers showcase the skill of medieval glaziers through detailed painting on the glass. This led to a cathedral school, a flourishing center of literary and philosophical studies, emphasized that human learning became wisdom only when it led to the source of wisdom, which is God. This art is a good representative of the decorative scheme that was used in Gothic cathedrals. Stained glass was used to tell the story of its history of salvation. Various scenes represent a pattern whole. The decoration of a cathedral was the common vocabulary of sermons. Sculptures in cathedrals represent the medieval art. They also represent a change in mood, one of redemption rather than damnation. Sculptures are an integral part of the cathedral structure. They're designed to complement the vertical lines of the buildings, guiding the viewer's gaze upwards towards the heavens. The sculptures also shifted from the rigid, elongated figures of the Romanesque period to a more lifelike three-dimensional representation. They became more natural. They focused on human proportions, flowing drapery, which you can see in the picture. Cathedrals were town buildings. Cathedral squares were seen the same as you would see a courthouse square in a small town. Medieval cathedrals exercised a degree of social control and integration. It shaped individual and social life in the town that it was set. People were baptized, made communicants, married, and buried in the church. There was also schools in the cathedral. Social services were directed by the decisions of the cathedral staff. Daily and yearly life was regulated by the horarium of the cathedral. Schedules were based off of the tolling of the bell. People would wake up when the bells would go off and they would eat to certain bells. The townspeople also followed the liturgical calendar, so if the church was off, so was everybody else. The church also had courts, which were very similar to civil courts. They would dispense justice according to civil laws. Guilds were fraternal society of craftsmen or merchants, and they performed charitable works and acted as a mutual aid society. Guilds helped build the cathedrals. The builders were also known as the master mason, and they functioned as the architect, engineer, and project manager. They designed and planned the cathedrals. Villard de Honnecourt was an architect from northern France. He is one of the most skilled architects from the time period. He would willingly teach apprentices skills ranging from carpentry to masonry to practical geometry and plan drafting. Music of the School of Notre Dame. Guido de Arezzo worked out a system of musical notation that provided the basis for the development of the musical notation that is used today. During this time period, church musicians experimented with plain chant by adding different voices at different musical intervals, and which was the organum, which is where there's many voices. School was the center of systematic musical study and composition. The Magnus Liber Organi is an important source for our knowledge of music in the Gothic cathedral period. This book is a collection of organum compositions for use during liturgical services. It introduces a new musical element by using additional voices or lines to provide interest. Important values contributing to civilization and antiquity in the 21st century is the architecture, the technological and engineering advancements of the pointed arches, ribbed vaults, and flying buttresses. The communal and civic pride. Cathedrals are symbols of the Catholic Church's power and the community's devotion. The economic growth. They were extensive long-term projects that created economic activity and growth in urban centers. It also promoted spiritual connection. It was a physical representation that led to human aspiration for transcendence. The cathedrals drove innovation in engineering and arts. It fostered social unity. Two important figures in antiquity is Guido de Arezzo, who invented the musical notation that we use today, and Abbot Suger, who undertook the construction of St. Denis in 1140 and also helped revolutionize the use of stained glass in the cathedrals. Important figures today would be Philippe Villeneuve, which is down here on the left side. He was the chief architect of the Notre Dame restoration. He's responsible for blending his work with the original medieval architecture. And there's also Stefan Lucking, who is actually the second man to the right in the right picture. He's a German glass painter who restored two large stained glass windows at Notre Dame after the 2019 fire. Here are two Google Earth locations, one of the Notre Dame and the other of the Sainte-Chapelle. The contributions to the humanities of the Gothic cathedrals is the art and sculpture. It became more naturalistic and emotionally expressive. The architecture, the innovations from the ribbed vaults, the flying buttresses, which allowed for taller, more light-filled cathedrals, created larger stained glass windows, which created an immersive spiritual environment. The growth of guilds. The rise of guilds improved record keeping, which resulted in the name of artists being known more than in previous eras. Community and religious centers. The cathedrals are community and religious centers. They served more than just churches. They're centers for community life, education, pilgrimage, and civic activity, which we can see today. Majority of these grand cathedrals are always open to the public and for tours, so you can see and experience the art. And these styles continue to influence architects today. And then here is a quick 5-minute video on what is Gothic architecture. Thank you for watching the video.